This is Marcus Whitney's audio universe.
Like, you gotta do the work. You gotta show up and just do the work.
What's up? Happy Monday. Hope everybody's doing well out there. First episode of Marcus Whitney Live of the week, and I'm bringing in my new friend, but we've gotten along very well in a very short period of time. We've been able to sit back on patios and smoke some cigars and enjoy some awesome conversations, have a lot in common, both being from New York and both doing a lot of stuff in online media. And, you know, this guy has what I would consider to be kind of a dream job. He gets to every day work and learn and create community around one of his great passions in life. So without further ado, my friend Jim Viscardi. Jim, what's good, man?
What an intro. Can't ask for something better than that. Holy moly.
That's what I do. That's what I do for my people, man. That's what I do for my people. No, great to have you on the show, man. Thanks so much for doing it. And, we haven't been able to smoke cigars for a little bit. I was busy with the book launch last week. I know you've been busy, fourth weekend, all that good stuff, but great to get you on the show.
Absolutely. I'm glad to be here. It's going to be fun.
So, man, let's just jump right in and tell me, how does somebody get your job? You know what I mean? How does that happen?
So my road to ComicBookcom is an interesting one because it was a thing for a very long time. So my first job out of college was doing marketing and PR for Marvel Comics. And I thought, that's it. I'm out of college. I've got my dream job. I don't need to do anything else. I have peaked at 21.
Hell that's yeah.
It. I'm going to be here. I'm going to write it out and it's going to be awesome. And, but Marvel was based out of New York and I was living in New York and, I just graduated college. And it was right after the economy tanked. Right. And so I was like, I went to Pace University and so many of my friends were all business majors and things like that. And like, they were all struggling to find jobs. And I happened to luck into a marketing and comm job because it was one of those things where even during school, I had the opportunity to do internships. Mm-hmm. And I had friends who were serial interners where they were like, we had the opportunity to do 4 basically over our course time. And they interned at 4 different places that they didn't really care about. They cared because it was an internship and they're like, oh, great, I'm getting the experience. I was way more methodical about what I wanted to do. Like, I don't just want to intern anywhere. I'm in New York, right? And so, the bar is already pretty high. But so many of the brands that I love and I'm passionate about are all here.
Yeah.
So why not pick one and really go for it? And so it was funny because I was I had always been a fan of superheroes and whatever growing up. The 90s cartoons, the Batman cartoon, the SpiderMan cartoon, all that stuff I loved. I wasn't really a comics fan until they killed Captain America. And it was on the front page of the Daily News. And I was like, they did what? and I hauled my butt over to Midtown Comics. I bought the issue and I picked up a bunch of stuff that was kind of happening all around the same time. They had a big event, Civil War was going on, and I got hooked and I was in. So then I started to follow some podcasts, and this was like the very early days of podcasts. There weren't that many, and even the ones that there were not a lot of great ones. But fortunately, there was one, it was run by some hometown guys on Long Island. It's the iFanboy podcast. And I loved it. And they happened to interview the marketing and PR person from Marvel at the time. And I said, so I just shot them an email. I said, hey, I'm a college junior. I need an internship. Can you put me in touch with Jim McCann, who you spoke to on the podcast? And they were like, well, let us get back to you because we just want to ask him before we put you in touch. But yeah, sure. They did. I did some interviews, and that was the only place I interned. I interned all 4 of my available semesters at Marvel.
Wow.
I loved it so much that when I graduated right as Disney was about to buy the company. And so there was a hiring freeze. And so it's like, I just spent, 4 semesters interning at this company. and now there's a hiring freeze. And they're like, we like you. We really want to bring you on. We can't hire anyone right now. And I was just like, oh, what am I going to do? I had a retail job I could have that I fell back on for a little bit to kill some time. It was I was working at Build-A-Bear Workshop in their flagship location on Fifth Avenue, and I was running their party business. And it was a ton of fun. I got to do a ton of things, and I was like, oh no, my life is going to become like I'm just going to be working the retail space for the rest of my life. Like, what am I going to do? Fortunately, I waited long enough. I pestered them long enough. They brought me on, and it was awesome. Like being at Marvel at that time, I think set me up for everything that I was able to do when I inevitably got to comicbook.com, because Marvel at this point had not yet launched Iron Man 1.
Wow.
It was a pipe dream. It was a here is this thing that we've got. It's, so much was riding on it. So to be able to see the very early days of Marvel Studios and see how like that was going to, affect the whole rest of the company was phenomenal, right? And then social media hadn't really been a thing. MySpace was the big thing.
Wow. Yeah.
When I had started at Marvel, and and it was just about to transition out into Twitter, and then Facebook started to get really big. And so a lot of what I did was a lot of brand building on those platforms at a very early stage for what inevitably became a $4.4 billion company when Disney bought it. And so like there was so much of an entrepreneurial spirit there where, look, most of my days were spent marketing comic books, and that was a dwindling, it was still a big market, but it was dwindling a little bit here and there. And so to figure out how to sell that stuff and market that stuff, we had to do some crazy stuff, everything from, creating, MySpace profiles for some superheroes or some villains or whatever, and come up with some weird viral marketing campaigns. It was just a ton of fun. So that all happened, and I basically got to a point where my wife and I decided, we wanted to start a family, and we didn't think New York was going to be it for us, and so we wanted to land somewhere. Mm-hmm. She ended up, she was working at Food Network at the time, which was another dream job thing for her.
Yeah, you guys are doing pretty good.
Yeah, we were doing all right, right?
Yeah.
She ended up getting a job opportunity in Nashville, and we went to visit, and we said, oh, this is awesome. And fortunately, the salary was enough that we were going to be able to kind of figure it out. I figured I'd freelance, I'd do whatever. And then, I happened to luck out that I happened to get a marketing gig at Ingram kind of at the same time. And so we left New York, moved to Nashville. And as it turns out, on my press list was the owner of, who at the time, the owner of ComicBook.com, a guy by the name of Joe Blackman. And he had worked with Shannon Terry during Shannon's rival days here in Nashville. Shannon was brought on as a partner and owner of Comic Book. They reached out to me and they said, hey, we're doing this thing. We're starting, comicbook.com up. We want to grow it. Are you into it? And having been on the other side of the fence, for so long, it's like, oh, well, is there only so much that we can do, in this space? Was this really the right move for me? And so I did a bit of work with them for a little bit, and I saw like the proof was in that pudding. Like it was going to be a rocket ship. And this was at a period of time where the superhero movies were exploding, and superhero television was exploding. Like Arrow had just come out. The Walking Dead was season 2 had just kind of hit, and that was when the series really started to take off. And so we looked at the site and we said, okay, there's got to be a niche we can fill in this space, and there's got to be a specific audience out there that we need to figure out. And we did. And it was basically, there were a bunch of sites that were diehard comic book sites, right? That were great. And then there was the Hollywood space, right, where it was just websites based off TV and movies and whatever. And there wasn't, people were starting to cover the superhero stuff, but no one lived and breathed it on a day in, day out basis. And so that was the hole that we filled. We were I always like to say comic book is new geek friendly, in the sense that it has something for someone who, at the end of the first Avengers movie, wants to know more about that purple, bumpy chinned guy at the end of the movie, but also provides that deep cut. Here's what that means for the diehard fan. And so we were bringing, the casual fan who just, is just watching the movies with the diehard comic book fans kind of together and figuring it out. And it took a little bit of time to try and figure that out, right? Where like you didn't want to be too pandering, but you didn't want to go too inside baseball, but you knew that you were doing a service by doing both.
Right.
And that was really the start of it. And then so basically what it was is I being at Marvel for as long as I was, I knew a bunch of people, on the studio side of the fence and, at Disney and whatever. And I knew a bunch of the, big name comic creators who inevitably went off to go do big things, right? You've got like creators like Mark Guggenheim, who started out, doing a lot of TV stuff and then came to do a ton of great comics work and then went back to go, basically build the Arrowverse, right? And so there were a ton of creators kind of coming in and out where like, there was a period of time where comics wanted to attract a lot of people from outside of comics to come write stuff, right? So your Kevin Smiths and your Joss Whedons and, all of them. And so, and then vice versa. There was a Brian Michael Bendis and Scott Snyder are all starting to get involved on the other side. And so it was the perfect opportunity for me to be able to, use the network that I had built and say and just kind of say what the mission of Comic Book was and say, this is what we're trying to do. This is, I would love for you to get involved in any way. We'd love to help promote your work and, and do whatever. And so the first couple of years of Comic Book were very news driven. We were, one of the things that anyone in our space will tell you is anyone at ComicBookcom is fast. Whether we are breaking news ourselves or we are reporting on some, aggregating some news elsewhere. If you want to know more about the thing that is happening right now in the space, the ComicBook.com homepage is where it's at. Mm-hmm. There was also a big shift in how people were consuming digital content.
Right.
There were, there will always be a time and a place for long form editorial pieces, but with the growing mobile market and Facebook becoming the juggernaut it was, and Twitter becoming, as big as it was, people just didn't necessarily have the time to want to read anything. They may read something and come back, but if I'm able to give them everything that they need, either in a story itself, walking from their desk to a meeting or down, running an errand really quick or going from one place to the other in that story, then I feel like we've done our job. If someone can also feel, like they are caught up enough by doing 2 or 3 swipes of our homepage from their mobile device and they feel like they're caught up, then I've done my job. Mm-hmm. And what that's done is that it's built an endemic audience that knows that they can come to comicbook.com for anything and everything that's in our space that is that is up to date. And so that was like the core, the core of what we do.
And when did you guys? What year did you guys start? What year did you guys get founded?
2015.
Wow.
14.
Wow.
14.
Wow. Fast run.
Yeah. It was. I mean, look, it was. This took. Look, a ton of credit has to go to Shannon Terry, who, obviously Rivals, 24/7 Sports, all of it. Like he is a savant when it comes to seeing the trends, understanding the landscape, and making it work.
Yeah,
I have learned so much from him that it is just, he is someone I'm always asking questions to. He's so good at it, and so, and we knew and there was also a period of time where, there was a bit of a Facebook boom where, the platform was growing very, very fast. And that was where we kind of stuck our flag in for a little bit to say, okay, we're going to, own this, a little bit for us. And then, we were able to kind of diversify a little bit. Right. So there was only so much straight superhero stuff that we can cover, but we know that there's so much audience overlap with a number of different things that still kind of fit. And you see it when you go to Comic-Con.
Yeah.
And Comic-Con is not just straight up cape comics and superheroes.
Definitely
and
not.
Like, the world of comics has grown. You've got, the horror comics, fantasy comics, things like that. Not to mention, there's a lot of studios who want those eyeballs, and they want that audience because they know it's a diehard group of fans who are passionate about what they love. And so there's animation, and you start to see wrestling, and there's a ton of video game stuff that shows up there. And so we kind of expanded our coverage lanes a little bit. We cover a ton of anime now. We cover a bunch of gaming. We cover a bunch of wrestling. To me, wrestling, and we've talked about this before. Wrestling to me is live action comics.
For sure.
It's serialized storytelling.
Yeah.
Good guys, bad guys. And it builds up to events, and then you kind of start back. It has the same ebb and flow of all of that. And so we said, there's got to be an audience there, right? And so. And and there is, some of our readers are like, oh, what does this have to do with comic books? But then, the people who are reading that stuff appreciate the fact that they can come to Comic Book, get that, and get whatever the latest is on Green Lantern. So
one of the things I want to, get your perspective on as someone who has built this media property, but it's also definitely a community. And
sure.
There are two questions that I have.
Okay.
One is about how you maintain for the diehards, right? Because we have to talk about the fact that comic books. I mean, you mentioned how you started at the right when Iron Man 1 was about to happen, and now, I mean, comic books, Marvel specifically, have taken over Hollywood, right?
You can't go anywhere.
I mean, Avengers Endgame. It's the greatest. Yeah. It's the best-selling movie of all time, right? So
right.
It's now at this point where comic books are pop culture to a large degree. I mean, I would say outside of like music and mostly like hip hop music, and,
right?
Like comic books are it, and have definitely been this huge. When I think about what drove Disney Plus, Star Wars and Marvel. Right. I mean, those were the properties that drove that platform, not even the old Disney stuff. Right. I mean, it was Marvel and Star Wars. Right. So how do you maintain a media property for diehards when, this comic book thing is now absolutely mainstream? How does that work?
It is, look, at the end of the day, none of this is possible without the comics, without the source material, without the
actual books,
the actual books, the day in, day out grind of comics.
I think a lot of people don't. By the way, I think a lot of people don't necessarily understand that because these movies get adapted, and
sure,
and for most of us, myself included, it's like we track the story on the screen. We don't track the story in the books, so we may not understand that what we're seeing on the screen is being driven by a smaller culture that is still print.
One of my favorite things to do at the end of every superhero movie is sit through the credits and wait for the special thanks. Because the special thanks section of every superhero movie that you've seen has a list of comic creators of who, in some form or fashion, had their work adapted to the movie you just saw.
Wow.
Whether it was a character that they created, whether it was a storyline beat, etc. Like, to me, look, it is a ton of work goes into these movies, and they would not get made without everyone else up, above that part in the credits. But at the end of the day, I don't know if Iron Man happens or Spider-Man happens without the comics having been made.
Yeah.
And so, but it's weird because we're at this point where the movies have covered quite a bit of ground, at least on the Marvel side, right? The movies have covered quite a bit of ground, right? So like take Captain America Civil War. That Captain America Civil War was not a straight adaptation of the Civil War event that happened in the comics.
The
themes and the ideas, and we're all kind of there. But it wasn't. But so like, okay, but that was a big event for Marvel. So that is boom. They toss it behind you. It's done.
Can't like redo it. You've already done it. You've branded it. You've taken it to the public.
Thor Ragnarok is another one where it was the whole on that planet with the Gladiator Hulk was this massive event that brought Hulk back to being this huge major player in the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
That, you know, kind of got squished down to maybe 20 minutes of screen time.
Yeah.
And so you kind of wonder, it's like, you know, I mean, comics obviously are still being made and ideas are still being plucked as recent as stuff that happened maybe, you know, 2 or 3 years ago. Like, it's one of the posters I have up hanging in my office, and I turned to show you, but all my cables will come out, is Marvel did an event called Infinity. It was written by Jonathan Hickman, and it took a lot of the ideas that you saw in Infinity War and all that. But for that poster, when I was at Marvel, my biggest thing is like, we need to make this poster look like a movie poster. And it is a big shot. It's got Thanos' head. It's got heroes. It's got the title up big, and it's got the credits like right underneath.
Yeah.
Because movie, like, you want to be able to capture that audience who is just doing that. And so at Comic Book, people want to, especially with the Marvel Universe, people want to know what's happening next. And they want to be the cool person amongst their group of friends that when they talk about the movie, let's use Endgame as an example.
Yeah.
Oh, it's going to do this, this, and this. And that's what this meant. And that's what this did. And so immediately they buy themselves some geek cred,
right?
Because they were able to come to a place like Comic Book and figure out what it all means. Where at the same time, we're also posing questions to the audience where it's like, okay, the character Nova is a character that a ton of fans love, was supposed to have been in the movies twice and has gotten booted out. We posed a question about like, why did Nova get booted out twice? How does a character like Nova fit? And why it's important? Or like, even you take a character like Miles Morales, who is a new character for all intents and purposes, created it within the last 7 to 10-ish years, right? And so, so there's a lot of that character where fans are introduced to Miles Morales for the first time, and there's a lot on the surface to really take in and be like, whoa, this is super cool.
Yeah.
But there's so much more to that character that is even cooler.
Yeah.
And so for us to be like, okay, here's what we want to see. Here's what we, the fans who have read and love this stuff want to see where Miles goes next, or what villains we think need to come into the MCU. And so that's how we balance that.
Okay.
Where it's something for someone who just saw the movie
to
get some geek cred, but also provide worthwhile discussion for our community on what it all means,
so
and where it should go next.
So ComicBook.com was acquired by CBS.
Yep.
And congratulations. I know it's been a little while, but dude, that's like incredible.
That's great.
The thing I want to talk about there is so many people have been swept up in the social media landscape. You talked about how back in the days MySpace was the thing. Now nobody would even think about doing MySpace. And what CBS bought is an online property, right? I mean,
sure.
if I can distill it down, they brought a domain name and a website, a website, and the traffic and the energy and the interactions and the ad revenue that they can sell against it and all these other kinds of things, right? So many people are putting all of their eggs in the social media basket, right? As I was preparing for the show, I went to comicbook.com, and on Instagram, you guys have 1 million followers, right?
Yep.
Talk about how you leveraged social media to build your property and didn't seed your property to social media. Like, how have you all been able to strike that balance? Because it is very, very difficult to do in this days where most people are spending so much of their time on their phone and on their phone in a couple of apps, right?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, look, it's knowing what audience is where. Our audience on Instagram is way different than our audience on Twitter, and it's more different than our audience on Facebook, and it's different than the audience that comes to the site directly. And so you have to be ready for that. You've got to be able to program for that. But at the same time, you need to be flexible. And I mean tie yourself in knots and then also untie yourself flexible, because things change at the drop of a hat. You can get an algorithm change will come to Facebook, and everything that you did doesn't work. Or doesn't work, or may change. Everything that you used to do, you did on Instagram, something Facebook decides we're going to change something, then it doesn't work. thing that will always work is giving the audience what it wants. And if you're not, and you're not necessarily engaging with them in that way, they'll move on to someone else who will. And that's how you kind of weather that ebb and flow of the ever changing, like by the minute changing digital landscape. And so, like I said, like, you know, someone who may follow us on Instagram gets a totally different experience of comic book than someone who follows us, you know, elsewhere. And we try and cross those bridges when we can. We know that there are certain things that will work and things that won't work. But at the end of the day, you know, it's like I said, it's serving different audiences, but the message is still the same.
Right.
We love this just as much as you do, and here's how we show it. And so, you know, for Instagram, you know, for us, it's been a great platform for us to elevate and showcase artistic talent. Whether it's cosplay, whether it's digital art, whether it's you know, videos, you know, on the video front. It's become a great opportunity for us to showcase that, because like that's where, you know, that's where a different eyes are. And so it's been, it's so hard for me, even when I'm having a quote bad day at work.
Yeah.
I always have to tell myself, and I've got a note that sticks on the far side of my wall that says, when you write about Spider-Man all day, it's hard to hate what you do.
Yeah.
And
yeah, man, that's why I wanted to have you on. Cause like, I just feel like this is, you know, the fact that you were in at the very beginning.
Yeah.
And, you know, you may not have necessarily like saw yourself as an entrepreneur, but you became one mostly because like you took a chance to do the thing you love.
Well, and here's the thing: I'm also incredibly competitive, right? And when we started Comic Book, you know, we were in a certain class, you know, just from a pure traffic standpoint, a certain class of websites, right? It was mostly blogs and whatever, people who were just kind of doing it for fun. And my goal when coming into comic books, I wanted to be in the same conversation as the Hollywood Reporter, Variety, Deadline, IGN, those mega brands.
Yeah.
And we're there. We're a 20 plus ComScore unique brand coming from doing, you know, where we were at, you know, 2 or 3 million just a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And that comes from sleepless nights, and it comes from like frantically wanting to make sure that I could be on top of news, break news, all of that stuff. Because without that, I might as well just be blogging.
You just answered the final question that I had, which you said in several ways across, but I wanted to know how important the news aspect of what you all do is to the what people want. Like, how important is that news piece?
It is so important, mainly because it's what's next.
Yeah.
It's the okay, beast. the story this far has grown. Maybe it's grown a little bit, maybe it's grown that much, but the story has grown and we're closer to the next thing. Yeah. And that's look, you always have to give a ton of credit to what Marvel Studios has been able to do with their universe. And I am honestly, I could not be more excited with the idea of what DC potentially has planned for their stuff, embracing their multiverse and whatever, because it just opens the doors of what they can do. Now, the thing is that, like, you know, someone gets cast or some villain is going to be involved. And so there's always an area of speculation that, you know, that we kind of thrive in, because if there's one thing that comic fans love to do, it's argue in a friendly manner of like, who's stronger, the Hulk or Thor or Superman or whoever, right? Yeah. Like, and so we play in that area a lot when, you know, during times like these where productions have stopped, movie, you know, releases have come, you know, are being delayed left and right. There's not a lot of news out there. And so like, what do we do? How do we do that?
Right.
And so fortunately we upped our interview game, right? Where, for a long time, everyone just kind of wanted to do, you know, phone interviews, and that was just kind of the norm. And then, you know, Zoom happened. Everyone's doing Zoom meetings. And so, you know, we've done a number of those, and junkets have basically taken the form of Zoom meetings. But we created a product on Instagram called Talking Shop, where it's there is no middleman. There is no, I mean, yes, there's a publicist that helps set it up or whatever, but it is us and that star on their phone turning it on and talking to you from wherever they are.
Yeah.
And it's been a huge thing. And so we've been able to, kind of dig back deep and we're looking at anniversaries, right? It's like, what are big anniversaries?
Yeah.
Who can we talk to for that stuff, and what new projects and stuff do they have? And so, look, you gotta make lemonade, right?
I love it.
So
I love it. Dude, this has been so, whenever we sit around and smoke cigars, like, first we'll just kind of catch up. How's everybody doing? And then I start like basically digging in like, okay, Jim, you got to tell me like how this works, because, to a large degree, what you've been able to do around this passion of comic book and a fantastic domain name is a lot of what I advocate for people broadly. I don't care like what kind of business you are or as an individual. Like, I think this is the like universal side hustle that people should be doing. Like, they should be figuring out how to leverage this world of media that is so revolutionary in the total story of humanity. You know what I mean?
Right.
We've never been able to do, like, the idea that I can do a freaking show is just so stupid. It is so dumb. This is dumb, but it's possible. And man, you just have so much wisdom and incredible, unique experience in this world that
I would be remiss to say that everything that we've done at Comic Book would not be possible without the team that I've got around me that is 1,000% bought into what we're doing and are diehard fan. Like they are just as diehard fans as the rest of us. And so, and they are smart, and they are people who will spot things out of, little clips of trailers and whatnot that I'll miss. Right.
Yeah.
And so like, it has been like, so I am so fortunate that
that's gotta be so fun.
Dude, and like, we've been able to like
man.
grow the team that we're at now, right? So like, and I just look at it like, we are, 20-ish plus, team. Now we have a dedicated video team. Like and everyone loves what they do.
Yeah.
And if they didn't have the same drive that like, if each individual didn't have the same drive as we as a group have, it wouldn't work.
Right.
And it all comes down to, just wanting to do the job and be the best at it.
Yeah. Amazing. All right. That's it. 30 minutes goes so fast here.
Man, that went so fast.
I know. I told you. That's how it goes. People, you should follow Jim online. The dude's brilliant. And definitely go to ComicBook.com if you found this conversation inspiring, either from the perspective of, you didn't know that ComicBook.com existed, and now you can be a smarter geek about, what's happening in the next movie that comes out. Or if you want to, quite frankly, reverse engineer what they do. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that I get into. I love learning the information, but like watching how they execute as a team, as a company, and have built this thing in a matter of 5 years is truly, truly inspiring. So follow Jim wherever he is online. My book, Create and Orchestrate, is now a week out into the world. This is the last day for the 99-cent special on Kindle. #1 Amazon bestseller in 6 categories, including entrepreneurship. So thank you for all the support. We had a great week. The podcast, Marcus Whitney's Audio Universe, everywhere that you get podcasts. Go subscribe now. And Marcus Whitney online everywhere. MarcusWhitney.com to subscribe to Two Worlds, the newsletter. That's it. Thank you very much for showing up. Brian Shore, thanks for the comments today on Facebook, and I will see you guys tomorrow with another episode of Marcus Whitney Live. Peace.
Thank you for tuning in to Marcus Whitney's Audio Universe.